All right, welcome everybody. We're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to share what I think is the answer. We'll whiz round, then we'll do intros. Just all I'll say about the intros is we're all coming from very different points of view to begin with, at least. I can't really say much more than that for now. Otherwise, the intros will start happening. So, um, do men want bimbos? When I first heard that from Claire, I was like, you're onto something there. And the more because I had an immediate reaction, was like, yeah, I think I do. Um, and then I was thinking about it a little bit more, and I was thinking, I think that reaction is to do with the current climate of women who don't care what men want, and um, they say we're really smart. Anybody can be smart, but they use that to ignore men's needs. That's kind of my immediate reaction. But my wider reaction is something like this. It's really unfortunate that what should be a natural connection between men and women is failing so badly in the West. And I would say the reason for that at a very high level is that we are moving away from our natural roles, which make us attracted to each other. We're very different, realizing that is important. And we work together when we realize our differences and our natural needs for each other. And maybe a last sentence would be something like, the reason why we've moved away from our natural roles is because of materialism. Materialism is linked to power, and women have been told they need to be in charge as if that's the most valuable thing. And I'll put a little flip on that and say, you know what? Maybe women have it better not being so called in charge and let the men do the donkey work of being laborers and making money. And women get to run their own schedule, do things, have a much lighter workload being at home. Maybe that's a bit dismissive of the role at home, but that's my initial idea. So we'll go round in a circle clockwise, and then we'll, as I said, we'll do intros as short as possible. I don't know if my one was particularly short, but Claire, go for it. What do you think?
Well, I do think men prefer women to be lower in intelligence than they are because it would be horrible to be. Well, I think women. Okay, women can imagine themselves to be paying for their cat, and their cat is able to speak and is more intelligent than they are and is constantly criticizing for their taste in their boyfriend, their clothes, and and I think instinctively we do not want our servant to be more intelligent than we are, and I think this is how men think of women to be, that the pets, because that they have the obligation to pay for and protect them, and they don't want a more intelligent woman to be criticizing their decisions and their behavior and their taste in, well, anything really. So
Cool.
that's why they want a woman to be less intelligent than they are. And
Great. Oh,
finally, there was a time when the mothers of very clever women were told to rein their intelligence in and not show it off too much in case they are left on the shelf.
okay. Cool. Very interesting. Uncle Narish, go for it.
Right,
He's not really my uncle, but I just say that. Go on.
I prepared my answer and the idea of like what I saw as the word stupid. So I assumed that in this sense, the term, hot and stupid meant a woman that didn't think for herself but was happy to do what she was told. like a girl being told by her parents what to do and she's not being independent, or a woman who follows her husband. So that's my idea of what I think stupid is. And does a man want a bimbo? A stupid woman. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's a very, very good start in any kind of marriage.
Cool. Okay. And Serena?
So I think that regarding what men want, and this is based on speaking to a lot of men at Speaker's Corner, is a woman that you can actually have as your companion, as someone that you can talk to and share your life with and share your interests with. And I definitely agree that in any healthy relationship, the man should be the dominant one in the relationship. But that doesn't mean that the woman should be a Stepford wife. It doesn't mean that the woman should be, completely just have no say, have no opinions, have no brain whatsoever. I think and this is something which feminists really don't understand. When feminists think that what men want is a woman who has no brains, what it is that a man simply wants a woman who is primarily in her feminine role as the more submissive force. But that doesn't mean that the woman should not contribute, that the woman should not be able to think for herself, or that the woman should not be a man's companion. So I think this really comes from a very big distortion of, as Khaled really quite beautifully said, a distortion of the roles of men and women. And I put this largely down to being the fault of feminism, that thinking that what men want are women who are brainless and can't think for themselves and don't say anything, as opposed to wanting a companion who is a submissive feminine woman, but still is also a human being with a functioning brain.
This is a fun topic. Okay, so let's do the intros now, but at least people have heard roughly what we've got to say, and then we can go into details and explanations after in a bit. So I like to try to keep my intros as short as possible. I'm a Muslim who likes to do happiness classes based on Islamic principles for non-Muslims. And the reason why I introduce it like that is because I don't want people to think that they have to believe what I've got to say. I like to support what I've got to say with age-old understanding by psychologists and sociologists and science and other, depending on what the topic is, but usually psychologists, supporting what I've got to say. And I try to do as best as I can. And by the way, I usually produce, or what I have in this one, as usual, produce a document, a summary of my ideas in the description. So that's my brief intro. I am getting some comments from Jay in my WhatsApp. Do comment in the live chat. Oh, actually, is it in the comments? Yeah, do comment in the live chat. It'd be really good so we can share it. Claire, what's your intro?
I'm an agnostic political philosopher who promotes Sharia for non-Muslims because I'm a social conservative and think it is important for the next generation to be produced within the context of a married couple raising a stable family. And I think the reason why there's so much crime and mental illness is because so many people are not raised within this environment. And this is dangerous, degenerate, and will cause the decline and extinction of the West. Cool.
I was just distracted by the WhatsApp thing. I was trying to tell Jay what he should do. But did you mention that you're agnostic? Because people might be confused by the picture you have of yourself and you look like a Muslim.
Well, I am selling the holy book of Muslims, so I need to use a branding to attract attention and make it clear that, to invite them in to have a look and then explain the rest of my plan. Otherwise, if I said, that I'm selling Clarism, they wouldn't be interested. But I think the Quran has a certain power and ability to attract attention in the way that I personally am not able to.
Okay, cool. Uncle Narish, go for it.
I'm Narish. I'm a Hindu. I've got conservative values, and basically I'm a fan of all two of your guests and yourself, and really it's quite fun to be here and get a chance to comment on the 3 people that I subscribe to.
Cool. Yeah. I just want to say that maybe I'll just say my intro to Uncle Narish is the reason why I invited him as a married man rather than unmarried men is because I would say a lot of unmarried men, first, they're not um, experienced in the reality of being married. So they would say anything to get sex, basically. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll do whatever you want, lady, whatever. And I kind of don't want to battle with that, really. But I'm willing to some extent to explain that. But anyway, so I kind of thought it's better to have a more experienced person than an unexperienced person who doesn't really know what they're talking about, who would just say yes to anything that a woman says, basically. Anyway, Serena, your intro, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zarina Mache, aka The Rational Female, author, poet, musician, and blogger, prophet of Mother Goddess, Bastet, and the Mahdi, here to usher in a new golden age.
Cool. All right. Okay. So we'll keep going round in circles, and I'll try to explain my idea in a little bit more detail. We don't have to speak particularly long. So as a Muslim, whenever I do what I call, I call them happiness classes. The idea is that I'm not just picking up random topics of no benefit. I'm not even here to waste my time being an intellect of some sort or any sort. I don't really consider myself that way. I only see myself as like doing a duty to humanity, hopefully making one person's life better. That's the aim, right? If possible, that would be fantastic. And I think people are suffering really badly in terms of relationships. I don't want to go down all the problems that people are suffering in the West, but it's terrible at the moment. Marriages are going down the toilet. They're not succeeding. They're not even happening. Relationships are not even happening at all for a large group of people. A majority of men and women are in crap relationships, generally speaking. Even if they're having sex, it's terrible relationships. They're basically being used. I would say that would be my summary of kind of the situation we're in, and the problem we're trying to solve. So if I could I'm going to briefly share my screen. I'm not going to be long. I like to try to keep things as short as possible. And the reason why I want to share my screen is because if I'm talking on behalf of Islam, I like to quote the Holy Quran, which is the guidebook for actually all of humanity, but especially Muslims. And so I'll very quickly point out what the Quran has got to say. As usual, I would say the Quran is very sexist, and I think that's fantastic, but sexist in a positive way. Like, I'm a racist in a positive way, but that probably confuses people as well. What I mean by that is sexism could be a way of describing specialism. People are specialists at different things. If you treat a cat like a dog or something, I mean, I'm not saying men and women like those kind of things. I'm just giving examples. Like, then you're not doing anybody a favor. Treat people like they are based on their strengths and weaknesses. So, with that, because people might not like what I'm going to say from the Quran. Here we go. Men are guardians over women because Allah, that's just a very ancient name for the one true God throughout all the ages, through common to all religions, I would say, but I'm not going to go into that too much, because Allah has made some of them excel others, and because they, men, spend of their wealth. So virtuous women are those who are obedient and guard the secrets of their husbands with Allah's protection. Then it talks about if they're disobedient, what they should do. We briefly touched on this with Zarina, kind of, I don't know if she brought it up or I can't remember. We discussed it a little bit. But it's not the key thing here. But as for those on whose part you fear disobedience, admonish them and leave them alone in their beds and chastise them. And these Arabic words need explanation. But anyway, then if they obey you, seek not a way against them. But the key bit that I really want to get back to is surely Allah is the high and great. So this whole thing about, yeah, you can tell them off, is ended with, be careful, because men, you're not really the bosses. God is the boss, and watch out for God. So be careful how you are guardians. And guardians are basically, the Arabic word, as I say, is far more meaningful and in depth than what you can possibly get in the English. But it basically means people who, men are people who have to take care of, are responsible for, and also are in charge of. All those meanings rolled up. So what am I trying to say? It is natural, not just based on what the Quran's got to say. It is natural, as men are stronger, they are naturally going to be those in charge. But also, let's get into all the politically incorrect stuff, right? Men are more rational. We know that. Even if Serena calls herself the rational female, maybe there's a reason behind that. Maybe because females are not necessarily as rational. And this is not just a claim. This is well known. If men are more interested in, this is according to, I'm not an expert in, I do check these things up in terms of psychology. I'm trying not to make this this segment too long. But I do study, like, what does the statistics say? And I'll try to end with this bit for now. What do the statistics say about what are interests of men and women? First of all, men are interested in things, women are more interested in people. That's actually quite nice things to say about women, right? But also, men are more interested in STEM. STEM, what is that? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It's just a more logical approach to things. That has many important value. It's very important in this discussion for many different reasons. But let's just say for now, it's important in terms of relationships. It's also important in terms of the wider role they have to play in the world, and in terms of making money, and why they're better suited, generally speaking, for making money. That's the role, dealing with the outside world. And every time I talk, I feel like I'm talking too long. So I will round it up like this. Men, if we just step back for a minute and use our senses and look at how men are built, they're naturally the leaders. And I'll say one more thing. Women like men in charge because of that. Women statistically, and I haven't gone through, I haven't given all the references. Maybe I'll update my document. When women statistically, men like men bosses, and to end my argument, women like being dominated in sex. Now, what's that got to do with anything? It's true. It's how we function, right? Why is that? I won't go into the biological reasons why that's necessary, but domination is not a bad thing as long as there's a kind domination and understanding domination. Anyway, I'll end with that for now. Uncle Narish's connection probably died or something. So if I unshare this document, which again is available in the description below. Uncle's back. Okay, and there's a fly attacking my eyes. Okay, here we go. All right, so now, I think
The sound's a bit weird. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's good.
Okay, good. I thought. Okay. I think it is fair enough if you're paying the bills to insist that you make the final decision. I think that's fair enough on the whole. I remember having an argument with my late husband, and I was silenced when he said, "Who pays the bills around here anyway?" So I think that's enough to silence any woman, if she's arguing.
Oh, is that it? I mean, that's the strong argument. I mean, that's the argument the Quran actually puts forward. I think and Claire is very well versed in the Quran, so maybe that's why you pointed that argument out. Is that right, by any chance?
Oh, no. I think it's an instinctive argument. It's like, the English have a saying, he who pays a piper calls a tune, and, who pays the bills around here anyway, usually works quite well against
Cool.
women and children.
Yeah, and I would say the Quran does give instinctive arguments or self-evident in some way. But anyway, thank you for that. Cool. Zarina?
Khaled, I think you put that forward really well. And it is interesting because, yes, the reason I call myself the rational female is because, yes, women are not typically rational. And I don't think this is a bad thing. I think that women should, the problem is that because of feminism, women have become so irrational. It's like, I think women have almost completely lost their ability to be able to think clearly and to think rationally. But you're absolutely right regarding the fact that, yes, women do typically like men to be dominant. They like men to be the ones who take charge. They like men to be the ones who are leaders. And this is so lacking in the West right now. The world that I have grown up in, my generation of males, unfortunately, on the whole, are not dominant. This is something I discussed with several of my female friends over the years. It's really, really sad. It's so hard. There isn't that sense of that dominance, that aggression, that sense of wanting to take charge and be authoritative is really, really lacking in the young men of my generation in their 20s and in their 30s. And it's really, really sad because it's like, I think a lot of women now feel like they have to be the ones who take on the male role. And it's, as you said, most women really don't want to work in STEM. Most women don't want to be politicians. Most women don't want to work in law. Now, for the record, as I have said on my channel and said on my live streams, there is nothing wrong with women who want to work in law or STEM or engineering, but these women are the minority. The vast majority of women, and I'm sure Khaled as well knows, I have been studied on this, women, the professions that women typically choose are usually nursing, teaching, caregiving, the arts, humanities. These are what women typically want to do. Most girls in school are not that, they usually prefer English, history, music. These are all the things that I like, psychology. These are what women typically like. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's really quite sad that women are constantly being told they have to be leaders. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the new Snow White movie, but I saw the trailer and the women were talking about this, saying, oh, Snow White's going to be a leader. It's like, why? In the original Disney movie, she doesn't want to be a leader. She literally wants to be at home, taking care of the house, and have a husband and get married. And this is what the vast majority of women want. There's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to be a leader. But even regarding female leadership, women who become leaders, they usually have a lot of men around them as well, guiding them. It's usually, they're usually like the one woman with a bunch of men. Women who usually typically do very male-dominated things, like myself going to Speaker's Corner. It's usually the minority of women, and they're usually surrounded by men. That is the reality.
Cool. Thank you. Uncle Narish, you there? Just want to check.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
cool.
I'm here, yeah.
And I don't like to ignore the chat. So, I was looking at different comments. Claire is very busy in the comments, but we'll wait for her to explain her comments when she talks. But it's worth explaining who, there's a bit of incel talk, like a Chad. What does that mean? So what is it? I might be wrong, but Chad means I would describe like an alpha male, somebody who has. For me, I don't get embarrassed. I think I just like something to explain. And when I do these talks, when I do these live streams, I do it because I think I really feel the suffering of so many men and the psychology behind some of the incel talk that I feel like that needs to be explained. But it's all right to laugh, by the way. It's funny. It's a funny discussion, But a Chad, as far as I know, is somebody who might be an alpha male or has a lot of sex. And maybe that's true in some ways. Like I would say that I think there's a statistic that people who are married, and I'm married, get 95% of all the sex in society, which is not. There are sexless. Actually, I've started talking too much. Sorry, it was. So I'm just explaining that comment. If you want, Uncle Narish, You can talk about it or not. You can just talk about whatever you want. But I thought it'd be worth pointing that out. Sorry, I started talking too much. Go on.
I just wanted to cover the points that you sort of put up in your notes, as well as the topic. What does a man want? I mean, what we're giving here is a choice between a hot, stupid woman, a hot, very intelligent woman, or a hot, ambitious woman. I think stupid goes correct every time, for the simple reason is ambition and superintelligence isn't really what's required within a partnership. What you require someone is a decent education, so at least they can talk, you know, they're not brain dead, but they're not overly ambitious, they're not like super intelligent, you're on the same kind of level. Their qualities should be basically, can they run a house? Do they know how to rear children? Are they of good character? Do they respect your parents and your family? Do they believe in God? And these are the qualities that I think are very, very more important than any woman having like super intelligence or ambition. And we go on about, you know, men's rights regarding women. In the notes, I think it's quite clear, and this is going to be controversial because I don't advocate violence in any form, but with everything, there's a time and place. So I'm going to be controversial here because the words are quite good. When a female misbehaves or does wrong, a man has the right to admonish. Admonish is a verbal telling off. Chaste is not. That is physical. So at this particular point, the only thing I can say here is everything has a time and a place. I'm not advocating domestic violence, but women are irrational. They come up with all kinds of stupid emotional thoughts. They will make the wrong decision. So, you know, it's one thing telling your wife off, but imagine coming back home and she's done something really stupid, like she's been punching your mum. You know, you might get very angry at that, you know. But these things don't, I mean, these extremes I'm talking about, but I think, yeah, men do have not only the final word, but they do have the right to raise their hand if the occasion, in the correct circumstances, arises.
Cool, yeah. I'm going to try to be more controversial. I feel like I'm sitting back too much already. Yeah, okay. So I think I'll just, whatever comes to my mind. So the first thing that Uncle Narish said, referring to the verse of the Holy Quran, maybe it's worth probably sticking up because it's easy to see what I'm talking about. So I'll quickly put that up again and explain it a little bit as well. Okay, so, and I think there's a lot of very clever stuff going on if you kind of look into it. So I'm just going to look at... and those, if you fear disobedience, step one, talk to them. I think that makes sense. Second of all, and people might not have realized or understood this, right, is don't have sex with them. Now, quite frankly, that's probably going to end all debates for men. Like, men will be like, I really don't want to stop having sex because the men need sex way more than women do. So it's actually a way of getting men to calm down and thinking, like, stop being mean. And then there's the telling off, physical telling off, right? Now, according to... I don't want to make excuses for this, but according to Prophet Muhammad, this word, the way the telling off works, is that it shouldn't leave a mark. But I want to rewind a little bit about the whole system of, let's call it policing. You have police there in the background, but hopefully you never use them. Like have I ever been in trouble with the law particularly? I don't know, except for a bus fine or something. But like the point is that you have them there in the background just in case. And this is like right at the end when really, hopefully you won't even get to that stage. That's what I'll say about that, and it's worth talking about, I suppose, right? Although I want to kind of focus on the bimbo thing. It is true. There's something really compelling about a bimbo, although Islam teaches, especially, you can go to heaven if your daughters are educated. If you educate your daughters, there's a saying, a proper word, if you educate your daughters, you'll go to heaven. And that's very sexist, focusing on women, because women are usually disadvantaged in society, right? But as I say, unfortunately, the way women are being told, be independent, and they become, and I've seen in my own families where people think they're really clever, those relationships are the worst. Like, the men really suffer, right? Because they say, oh, we're really clever, now we're going to go out and do jobs and stuff like that. And you might go, oh, what's wrong with women doing jobs? I'll very briefly say, usually it works out very badly. It ends up with sexist society, sexist marriages, because women do get tired. They get more tired than men. And all sorts of other things about stress and stuff. Men and women react to stress differently. When women are stressed, they don't want to have sex. When men are stressed, they're very happy to have sex, for example. But I want to get back to the incels, because that's something close to my heart. I feel really badly for a lot of men who, like, just to go into statistics, there's something like, 50% of men, more than 50%, is climbing up to 60% last time I checked, in all over the West, America and all over Europe, okay, have not had sex for the last year. They're not in long-term relationships, right? That's really sad. But why is that happening? It's something to do with the roles of men and women. Like, women are saying, we don't need you. And one of the reasons why they don't need men is because it's kind of two things at the same time. Men are not being men. So it's like, why do we need men? Right? And women are taking over the role of men. And it's just a nasty mess, let's say. And the last thing the other thing I want to say that I remember, and I'll end with this for now, is it is really sad that men are not being men. And as Serena and I think Claire was saying that it's really kind of frustrating for women not to have masculine men. And probably get back to that point, Khalid must be a Chad. I think every man naturally wants to be like a Chad, let's say, by that description. Like, wants to lead, wants to have lots of sex. If you go to, if you look at men in, let's say, Orthodox Jews and Muslims, they've got loads of children, especially Orthodox Jews, like millions of children, right? Okay, they're all Chads, basically, according to that definition. And religion kind of provides the framework so they can get what they need. Men need certain things. And I think we've become a misandrist. Is that the word? I can't even say the word because nobody ever says it. Everybody says misogynist all the time, right? Which is not taking care of women's rights. But a lot of people don't care of...
Gynocracy.
What was it?
You could say gynocracy or gynocentric.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there was a word misandry, isn't it? Like
misandry,
like
the hatred of men.
Yeah, and people subconsciously hate men because they don't care about what they need as well, and they need sex. They need all these other things that are considered male chauvinist. Like, I was talking to my friend, and he was like, "Yeah, what do I want? I just want my wife to know what I want when I come back from work. Just give me food, have sex with me." And I like to see my children. Sounds really sexist, but not too long because they'll be annoying because I've just had a tiring day at work. That sounds really chauvinistic, but that's what men want. And maybe we should listen a little bit to that. So talked a little bit. I think every man should be a Chad is my summary, and should have the opportunity to be so. Yeah. Claire, you've got loads of comments going on. Do you want to... I'll click through them if you want, and then you can maybe explain them. Would you like that? And I'll stop sharing as well. So do you want to go through them, your comments, by any chance?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I thought they're self-explanatory, but if they're not, let me know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. That's okay. So Sorry, my computer doing something weird. Okay, so women. I don't have to read it. You can. I can click. How would you like me to do? Do you want me to click through them, or do you just want to talk and whatever?
Yeah, I'm basically saying, women want to look after, to look up to men, and I think what women want is to marry somebody like their father who will take them shopping and be kind and look after them and be stern with them, but not abusive towards them when they do something wrong. And that is what they want. They will be comparing their spouse with their father if they had any kind of a good relationship with their father, and they'll be saying, well, why aren't you like my father? Why aren't you buying me stuff? Why are you just being such a child? And I don't think men understand that. Or they don't know how to act like their father because they've never met their fathers these days now.
Yeah. So yeah, I won't comment on that. So I'm trying not to comment too much. But yeah, that's a very good example that they don't have father figures anymore. But Zarina next.
Yeah, so I'd like to touch on what Uncle Nara said regarding men not really wanting intelligent or ambitious women. And I think this narrative is quite dangerous because I think one of the reasons why women become feminists is because I think most feminists are fundamentally quite intelligent, ambitious women. And I think that because they're a minority, because most women are not highly ambitious, and women who are very ambitious usually historically suffer a lot when it comes to romantic relationships. And I think that this is where this leads to a lot of women becoming angry and thus saying, oh, I'm now going to become a feminist because I don't need a man because men don't want ambitious women. There's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to be ambitious. And I'm going to use a woman who I admire a lot, Marilyn Monroe, because Marilyn Monroe was really perceived as a bimbo. She was perceived as a dumb blonde, and she was often cast as a dumb blonde. But she was actually a very, very, very intelligent woman. And she would have had to be in order to become like the highest grossing actress of her time and the most desired woman on the planet. She really was very, very smart. She was very hardworking. And she was also at one point married to Arthur Miller, who was a very famous playwright. So I don't think as well, apparently their relationship was very, very intellectual as well. I think the problem is when women who are very ambitious, who forget that, so when you'll say in your career, or say if you're, let's say an actress or a politician or whatever, if a woman is in her career, she should not bring that into the relationship. And I think that's where the challenge becomes. I don't think that most men really would mind if their wife or girlfriend was like, I want to be a marine biologist, I want to be a psychologist, I want to be an actress, I want to be a writer. I don't think most men would mind as long as with the man in the relationship, the woman was not trying to compete with the man. And I think this is the problem, and this is where women perhaps need some guidance, is that feminism has really, what it's done is made women compete with men rather than be men's companions. And it's like in your career, you can be the boss, you can be hardworking if that's what you desire, which is again the minority of women who are like that in the first place. If you want to be ambitious or own a business or whatever, but when you're with your man, it's like remembering that you're a female, that he is still, the leader in the relationship. And I think ultimately that's what it is. If a woman is a leader in her business, she should not be the leader in her relationship. And I think as well, most women don't want to be the leader in the relationship. I think Claire was bang on. Like most women want to be with a man who's like their father, who is the leader. I'd say it's even more so actually. It's like the more ambitious you are as a woman, I think the more you're going to want a man who's a real leader. And I would say this as well from personal experience. It's very, very, very hard. Like the more ambitious you are as a female, the more driven you are, the more you're a go-getter. And I definitely think that a lot of women who are like this really, really suffer. And women who are very ambitious shouldn't feel like they're being punished for wanting to be ambitious. You'd be like, no, it's fine to be ambitious. There's a lot of women who are very high achieving in academia or such and such. But it's about remembering that when you're with your man, he's the one who's in charge. And that's why I think Khaled, you nailed it, saying that, yes, we need to encourage all men to be chads. Because if all men are chads, if all men were dominant and competent, then it's like, well, women would just naturally in the relationship naturally fall into that role. Because it's like if all the men are dominant and chads and, holding it together, then the man's not going to feel, insecure or whatever if his wife's like, I want to start a business or I want to be that. Because it's like, I'm still, she might have a business, but I'm still the man, effectively.
Cool, interesting. And Narish?
I think, really, at the end of the day, I'll be frank, I don't really give a damn what women think. At the end of the day, whether they choose, they get unhappy with what I think and become a feminist, that's their problem. I can only say from where I come from, a woman's in a marriage has only got one job. One job. You can't have multiple jobs. You think it's easy to run a house and a family, raise kids. That's just a stupid pipe dream. You want a woman who's prepared to be a full-time mother, a full-time person who's run the home. Your husband will be out working to provide the money. You've got to remember, before you get married and start having children, your husband had one wage for himself. Now that you're married and you've got kids, it's a huge burden on him. He expects you, right, to keep the house going while he's working. It's a full-time job, and don't think it gets easy. Extended family, you've got elderly parents, other responsibilities. Leave your ambition and all that kind of thing outside of marriage. Nobody wants an ambitious woman. Yeah, your woman, yeah, when she's 25, kids are growing up or something, she might want to. That's different. But for marriage purposes, no. I don't give a damn what women think. If they want to be a wife, that's their job. They either do that or they become a feminist.
Yeah. So, as I say, I still don't feel like I've been very controversial. So let's try a bit harder. So, yeah, I've always told my wife I don't want her to work. We've experimented with that, but it does take a lot more time and action than we kind of like to believe. And also I've seen too many terrible stories of how families have broken down, because what happens is, okay, so I go away from women or my wife, or just a general idea of women working, because there's a massive push the other direction and by the friends of those women. So I've seen terrible things in relationships happen because that a woman who thinks maybe I could work, maybe I shouldn't, right? She's got all her friends saying, oh, we work and we make this much money and look how much fun we're having. And women are really strongly pulled by their friends to do really dumb things, okay, that are detrimental to their relationships. Loads of women leave their relationship because mostly it's women who ask for divorces, right? It's them going, oh, if only I could make more money. And they're already holding their men back by working. So you can't have a man focus and do his job really well if he's taking care of the children at the same time. You gotta specialize. The way I explain it, this is a kind of a basic thing in economics. It's called specialization. Is that if I try to be, let's say, a brain surgeon and a plumber at the same time, my patients are going to die and we're going to have leaks. I'm going to do both rubbishly. You've got to specialize, you've got to focus and do your thing better. So it's not actually, I suppose it's worth explaining this, it's not actually misogynistic to, when you go home, want somebody to cook healthy food for you and take care of your needs so you can relax after a hard day's work. Because the idea is all you're doing is specializing. And your wife shouldn't mind working for you, as it were, just like shouldn't mind when she works for a company. She didn't go to the boss, nah, I don't agree with you, I'm doing my own thing. Okay. And the wife whose boss is her husband, that's like, she's chosen that person. She loves that person. So why not listen to him? Why? He's not going to be we shouldn't think of him as the enemy. And I don't think a man sees his wife as the enemy. These are kind of made up ideas of feminism that we need to get rid of. We're not enemies. We're working together. We're helping each other, and we want different things. We love having home cooked food. We could buy food ourselves easily, but we much rather have home cooked food. It means something. What does it mean? You can imagine yourself, because I don't like talking too long, right? So it's not misogynistic to have these gender roles. It's just different roles. And I think, Serena was saying, actually women like being women. They naturally are really good at that, and they like it. And we've been lied to by a kind of, you could call it high achieving women, but I'm not even sure about that. I think maybe confused and angry women. And they've been leading feminism and making other women think they also want to be angry and against their, husbands and stuff like that. And I suppose the last thought is, how do you deal with the idea that maybe a woman wants a career to be fulfilled? I think that's kind of sad, that they need, what's the word? Some sort of validation. I'm not saying women can't ever. Am I saying women can't ever work? I rather they didn't, or not my wife anyway. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I mean, I just think men are just better at it, better at dealing with the mechanical world. Like that's why they're good at STEM. They're good at the mechanical world. Like for example, cooking. Women are fantastic cooks at home, but men do it fantastically in industrial level when you have to cook stuff in 5 seconds for restaurants. And that's not actually a great thing. I think restaurants are overrated. They should. When I was young, we hardly had any restaurants. It's a stupid idea. We should have less of them. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. Yeah. So Claire.
You may be interested to know that I know a certain tweeter who is a graduate and said, if I marry, I don't want to go to work. And she's a graduate. She actually says, I would like to marry a man capable of supporting me on one income, and even though I have a degree, I don't want to work. So this is something to consider. I mean, years ago, I remember that there was this sort of group of women in the British media saying, well, we are graduates and we are mothers, and actually we'd prefer not to work. So that's what they said. But obviously for men to get themselves into a position of being able to support a family on one income, they would have to do away with equal pay. And a lot of the feminist legislation, and I don't think they quite dare to call feminism out in this way.
Okay, cool. Serena?
Well, again, as I'll reiterate, because there are a lot of very ambitious women out there. And again, as I've said many times, regarding female ambition, it's that there's a difference between a woman working a job because she just wants to have a job, and B, a woman doing something she's genuinely passionate about. If a woman, like, for example, Frida Kahlo was a painter and she loved to paint, that's not the same as a girl getting a job in Starbucks or working in an office because she feels like she has no other option. And I think I know a lot of ladies, like the woman Claire mentioned, do want a man to just provide for them. Like most females, especially I think in their 20s, or whatever, or 30s, would really just like to have a man take care of them financially. I'd like a man to take care of me financially. And the thing is, we're not really allowed to say that. It's like if I say that to my mum will just say, oh, you shouldn't want that. No, all the women I know of my generation in the West, none of us are allowed to say, oh, I want a man to take care of me. Like I remember once thinking, oh, imagine if when I was like 20, I met a guy who had a lot of money and he was like, yeah, I'll look after you, I'll provide for you. And then you can sit at home and write your books. I'll get you a nice studio and you can play your music and, and then maybe in 5-6 years we'll have children. Like that is a much nicer setup. And I think maybe this is why as well, like getting married young, because a lot of also on YouTube, there's a lot of housewives who make YouTube channels and start blogs. Like it's not like all they do is just sit at home doing nothing. Like they actually do a lot of things, but again, it's like they do it in a very feminine way. Like there's a lot of feminine YouTubers, feminine people women that talk about being a feminine woman, and they have their businesses and whatever, but they're doing female focused things. And that really does seem what seems to be missing in the West. It's that instead of women being able to go about things in a very feminine way, women are all being pushed to go about things in a masculine way. So I think that's really what people misinterpret, is that what the feminists lie is that women will be liberated by behaving like men rather than behaving like women. Because I've said, women have always worked, again, like nursing. I always emphasize this. Nursing is such a female focused profession. And really, at the end of the day, it's that men and women have different strengths. I think a lot of women would be very quite, I don't know, because women tend to get very easily offended. And I think a lot of women would be very offended by the idea that a man just wants a stupid, bimbo who doesn't say anything. And I think as well that, a lot of women who are very ambitious as well, who perhaps want to move away from the feminist ideology, but also not be anti-men, should just start to think more about what do you actually want to do that will actually bring out the best in your life. And really that comes down to choosing things that are female oriented, female focused. Again, like instead of trying to go about things in a very masculine way, being able to go about things in a feminine way. But we'll only be able to do that once men can become men again. Because I think once men become masculine again, women will be able to then fall back into place, because men are so unmasculine and they're so neutered emotionally, and they're just so, a lot of them just sit at home, watch porn and all that. So women feel like they have to take on the male role, which is very exhausting. And I think which is why most modern women in the West are really, really suffering right now.
Cool. Uncle Narish?
Right. Basically, ambition is a masculine trait. I mean, whatever way you look at it, it's women trying to be a man. A woman trying to be a man or having that kind of ambition goes against my ethos of what I require in a partner. An ambitious woman is simply emasculating her man. She's taking the alpha part of him away. Whether she understands or not, she's indirectly competing against him. These so-called intelligent, ambitious women are the reason why your generation are all unmasculine. They run around, whatever you women say, they'll lie over and say, yeah, stroke me on my stomach. They're too frightened to tell you the truth, because they've lost that masculinity, because that environment doesn't exist. Ambitious women are simply wasting their best childbearing years. What are you going to do with your degrees? A good level of education gives you the ability to talk and do all manner of things. You don't need a degree in sort of drama or musical studies to achieve motherhood or running a family. Simply at the end of the day, that time you spent at university or whatever, it's been wasted. Maybe after you had children and you fulfilled your role, you could have considered going to adult university, but that's different. A family, the reason why it's important to have stupid women, as we so-called, and I'm not being insulting, every man needs to feel alpha, and you don't understand that. This is why we need men-only spaces. We need to compete against other men to feel like men. And even then, in the real world, not all of us reach the top. Amongst any pack of dogs, there's a pecking order. But we still need to feel alpha, and that's where the family comes in. That makes you the most alpha person is your family, not outside competing against other men. When you are the head of your family, your wife is subservient to your role and follows your lead, and she looks after your pack, your children. You are truly alpha. And that is the only way. And when you don't do that role, that man is going to suffer because you've cut his bollocks off, he's castrated. He won't feel like a man. He won't be able to compete with other men. Then you'll wonder why you've got marital problems. In the end, marriage and everything is simple. The thing is, intelligent, ambitious women complicate it.
Yeah. I just want to say I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm grateful for the ladies being here, but I feel like Uncle Narish is really articulating the stuff. Like even like like you cut the balls off your husband or something, but the way you've articulated that was so accurate, like what men feel like. It reminded me of this really sexist thing So my wife's grandmother told of her wedding day, right? And so my wife's grandfather had a number of wives. They're Arab. This is normal for them. And the memory that she remembered of their wedding day, their wedding night, was he goes when they get in the bedroom. He goes to her, take your clothes off, right? Like bossing around, right? And that's kind of like almost necessary in some ways, like having that dominance and that power. And you can't have it if you don't feel you're in that position, you're in that role. That's not a bad thing. What's supposed to happen on a wedding night anyway, right? So I think that kind of sums up sort of the masculinity that needs to be there. And when it's not there, men don't feel like men, and then they don't act like men. They don't make money like men can, because they like feel shit. They feel like they like Zarina was saying, they just end up looking at porn. Even if they're married, they look at porn because they're not getting sex, because they can't say, they're too shy. This is kind of the thing behind sexless marriages. They're like, oh, should I ask my wife? And then my wife, I'm a bit tired, you know. So you need that dominance. Otherwise, you do spiral into a sexless marriage. Yeah, I suppose that's it. I suppose I'm going to try to wind up now back to the beginning, so we could all have our last comment. And the way I'm going to wind up my last comment is, what was this discussion supposed to be about? So I have a happiness course. My website's being hacked again, so you can't see it. But it goes something like this. Today's one is supposed to be about love. And I will respond to the comment below from George as well. George made a lot of comments. I do like responding to comments. It's supposed to be about love. Now, the average person says, you just got to be kind. You got to know how to be kind first, and you've got to have the fundamentals right. If you don't understand human nature and the difference between men and women, that kindness is going to go wrong. Basically, men who are, let's say, in today's terms, beta males, like the beta would be the English way, but I think it's all Americans talking on these YouTube shows nowadays. Okay, they would just go, oh, it's being kind to let my wife do anything, and I just stay at home and take care of the children, and the roles are upside down. By the way, women are biologically designed, it shouldn't be surprised, to be better at taking care of children. I had that experience when my wife was sick for a bit in the hospital, and I was trying to take care of my 3-year-old. Disaster, really hard work. Okay, and my wife can't do what I can do at work, right? So I suppose what I'm saying is, kindness is not enough. The reason why Westerners are having so much trouble with their relationships is because, which should be naturally a beautiful connection between men and women, is because we've left nature behind. The difference between men and women, the strengths of men and women, the differences in those strengths. And if we go back to them, things will start falling into place very quickly. And then the kindness and all that other stuff comes behind that once you've got the fundamentals right. And quickly to answer Joe says, you're rewriting the Quran, you're misinterpreting it, whatever. You can prove it to me, but I never said there's a written, you have to write something when you're telling your wife off. You just have a discussion. I don't know what you're talking about. So 434, I called it 435 because I referenced the numbers differently. But I think you should try listening to the Islamic perspective. Don't just read from anti-Islamic websites about Islam. It's not the best way to learn about Islam. That would be my response. Okay, so all the last comments. Sorry, I talk a lot. But anyway, last comments, and then we'll just wind up. For me, it's already been fantastic. Claire?
I actually don't have anything more to say after what I've just said, other than it's all a question of status. And we were talking about how men expect to be a degree above what women because of that verse in the Quran, and obviously they feel they have to be a degree above women if they are doing the protecting and the providing, and I think women would feel that's fair enough if they are fair-minded.
Okay, cool. Serena?
Well, it's funny because I kind of thinking back to the live stream that we did on arranged marriages, and I actually wonder if I was really thinking about this the other day, if maybe this is why it makes more sense for people to get married and have children young. Because if people get married and have children when they're like 16 or whatever, then it means that then later on, it's like once you've had children and you've fulfilled your role as a mother, as a family person, then you've got all the rest of your life to have a career. And actually makes more sense. Well, it's funny because my uncle said this to me, but I actually have thought about it, and it actually does make more sense. It almost feels like we're doing everything the wrong way around because, I really want to make it very clear. Like I'm the last woman who would ever say, like, I think for me, if someone had told me, oh, you can't write books, you have to just, be a wife and mother, like, I'd be heartbroken. Not because I don't want to be a wife and mother, but because, I love writing books. That's really what I love to do. And I'd feel really quite sad if I was not able to do that. I think there's a lot of women again who genuinely do want to do things. It's not like, as in, it's not just working in Starbucks, but who say genuinely want to be a lawyer, genuinely want to be a nurse, genuinely want to be a painter. And it's like, maybe if society values the more feminine focused activities in the first place, like the art, because again, we don't really value the arts that much anyway. We value like STEM and politics more by default because that's just the way the world is right now, especially in the West. But I think that maybe if people prioritize, having children and families when they were young, then it's like, well, by the time in your 30s, heck, if you want to then go start a career, then that makes more sense, really, because you've got your children, you've done that, and it's much better when you're young. So maybe that's a big ultimate problem, really. It's that everything's flipped the wrong way around. It should be family and children when you're young, and then if you want to have a career, you can do that. Then you've got the rest of your life to do that as well.
Cool. I mean, I have been commenting on all of your comments, but I think I will very quickly because there are so many good points, and I'll just kind of vaguely point out some statistics behind what you've been saying, Zarina, and also something about what Claire said earlier on as well. What the reason why there are so many childless women, I think, was it 50% of women over 30 don't have children? If you're over 30 and you already don't have children, there's a good chance you won't have children at all because whatever reason you're less likely to be pregnant. And if the fact that it takes so long for women to get into stable relationships is cool, and then you'll be really miserable, and that's also statistically true. The most miserable women in the West are in the 40 age range when they mostly realize that they're going to be lonely when they grow up. So, and the reason for all of that is because they think at some point everything is going to click together, that their relationships are going to happen, but they've always put their relationships on second place to their career. And the only people who are successful, really, statistically, in their relationships, in them and getting married, are the religious people who put number one priority to getting married. So I'll just say that quickly and very quickly. Sorry, Uncle Narish, but I've been avoiding commenting on all the beautiful comments that you guys have been making. Claire said something about equal pay between men and women. Even if you had equal pay, the reason why men make more money, there is a gender pay gap, as they call it, is because men just are interested in things that make more money, like STEM. STEM basically means employing robots to effectively have millions of people working for you just by programming them and stuff like that. It's just a different mindset that makes loads more money. It doesn't mean women are less valuable. It's just that capitalism doesn't pay for caring for people. It's just a nasty thing about capitalism, I suppose. And anyway, sorry. So Uncle Narish, I'm happy you're the last person to talk. I love hearing you. Anyway, both of you two as well, ladies. But Uncle Norris has been really interesting. Go for it, Uncle.
Okay, I think I'll just finish off with a message for modern women. You know, obviously at the end of this, I've already been labelled right wing and all this kind of stuff, so I might as well have a misogynist sort of added to the mixture. But I have a message for modern women. You totally misunderstand what love is. Love is not a stirring of the loins or sex before marriage. Like, love grows over time. It's a shared experience with your soulmate, your wife, your life partner. It's watching your children grow. It's supporting each other through all your trials and tribulations. And most beautifully, growing old together, etc., etc., etc. That's what love is. And you don't find love right before marriage.
Yeah, just like in any relationship, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're friends with another guy, right? You can call, obviously that's love, right? But we call it, oh, you can't say love between men or something. That's just a stupid idea. You
Brokeback
build up
Mountain.
relationship. You build relationships. Do you know what I mean? I'm not talking about gay relationships. I mean, I find it really weird. I'm not going to go on, but here in Arab culture, everybody says "I love you." Like that's how you say hello, kind of thing, right? And that's men and whatever. It's just that what you just said, Uncle Irish, was the sort of common sense that's been lost. It's not like some magical thing that just happened. It's something that develops. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. So we always go over time. I think we made the point. I hope somebody learned something from it. I really hope somebody's relationships works out better and they find people a better way. But anyway, I'm going to keep talking if I carry on. So thank you very much for your time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.